All right. We are just about to get started here. Come on in, collect yourselves. Nothing too strenuous for this week. If you're looking to learn design, you've come to the right place. Let's get into this. All right. So, see, we need to get our audio going. Sure that it's working. Okay, there we go. All right. So, is week 1 of Designer's Corner, and here and help teach you design. One moment. All right, let's go ahead and take some of these settings off just to increase our audio. All right. So here at Designer's Corner, this is a channel dedicated to helping you understand, learn, design, mostly from like a working perspective, as well as trying to get a job. So when I first kind of started this, just before I started working on this, my wife posed to me the idea of like, what's the purpose? Like, what are you working toward here? And so that's kind of what I wanted to start with here. The purpose of what we're doing here is to try to help others. So giving back, to the community, to everyone else who's out there looking for a job, trying to, increase their status in life. You don't want to be working at Walmart or Target all your life. So being able to have, useful skills, such as what designers and specifically UX designers, UI designers, graphic designers, we'll cover a range of everything here. Having those skills really can help you to get ahead in life, and especially if you're looking for a career change, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. So, why me, basically? I bring a special perspective to building your resume, building your portfolio, and basically getting a job. I've had a couple of jobs in the past, starting with Walmart. Then eventually I transitioned, just through the grace of God, into working for a wholesale textile company. Then after that, I worked a little bit of web design, worked a little bit with HTML5, CSS. And then from there, I finally got my big break and finally broke into the world of UX design. So, in order to be able to help you get there, I would like to share my perspective and the ways that I've grown and kind of found myself through trial and error, through building my portfolio, through failing often, many times. I've had to redesign my portfolio a couple times. The portfolio it's just projects. Anytime you make a project, you can put it in your portfolio. Your portfolio will go over all that kind of stuff. But the main takeaway is to not be intimidated by, the big words: resume, portfolio, interview. None of that stuff none of that stuff really matters. What we're here to understand is the mindset, is to understand what we need to do to tailor the resume, to tailor the portfolio, to be able to land that job, to be able to get the interview in the first place. And so, what we're talking about here is sharing skills and knowledge. So, again, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach you. Right now, my current tool, just of choice, but it's also the industry standard, Figma. So that's a design tool similar to Sketch, similar to InVision. What else is there? There's a bunch of others that, lesser known ones, but for the most part, those are the main ones. Adobe XD is another one. Besides that, there's mainly just some other like graphical design tools, Photoshop, other things like that. And we'll go over some of that. I'll introduce you to some of that this week. But for the most part, I'll teach you how to use the current industry standard Figma. And from there, once you kind of have an understanding of how one tool works, it's very easy to transition between different tools. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about hands-on learning. So we're going to get hands-on in this course. The main thing that you'll want to take away from this is the mindset. Now, regardless of what we actually cover in this course, regardless of the projects that we make, all that kind of stuff, it's arbitrary. It can change, just from going through this course, I'm not saying that you're going to be able to land a job necessarily. We're not creating the project that's going to land you any particular job. That part is going to be up to you. But what we are covering here is the understanding, the foundations, the principles, the tools too, the software, and how to use it to your advantage, how to actually work in it. And so from there, we're going to get hands-on. We're going to be primarily working in Figma. We're going to start off with Photoshop and Google Slides. And, we're just going to work our way through some of the tools that you might need in order to, get a job in this industry. So again, we're working toward a UX designer's job. And, I'll cover that in a moment, what exactly that means. So, the agenda for today. We're going over just the class overview right now. Week 1 is an introduction to the course. Week 2, we'll go over some of the tools. Again, Photoshop, Google Slides, Figma. Week 3, we get into some design thinking. Week 4, principles of design. Week 5, we'll do some soft skills. So that's going to be speaking, presentation, any of those types of things. Those are very crucial to being able to land a job, even more crucial than any of the design tools, softwares that we might go over. So soft skills, that's going to be a big one. Week 6, we'll start to build our resume. I'll help you design and kind of think about how to go about creating that resume. And week 7, we'll work on building a portfolio. So that's kind of where I'll kind of loosen the leash a little bit and let you go once you have kind of the foundation for using Figma, for using some of these tools. Then we'll start to get into building that portfolio and putting those projects into, onto our website, onto Behance, onto, wherever you're using as, Dribble, whatever you're using as your portfolio site. So basically, we'll just kind of cover the whole gambit. Now, when we say week 1, week 2, that's not a 7-day progression. So week 1, we'll be here as long as we need to be in order to cover the topics that we need to get through this introduction. So week 1 isn't a 7-day, it's just a general term to cover what we're doing in this introduction portion. So, when we talk about this, you know, this is a little out of order. This is a little backwards. Why would we start with the tools and then get into the thinking process? Most other courses that you take, most other classes that you enroll in, will teach you the principles and the fundamentals first before they ever give you access to the tools. That's problematic. The best way to learn something is through exposure. Now, you'll want to start at a difficult level. You'll want to start at a high level, because from being exposed to something at a high level, it forces you to aim higher, and in the process, you're going to figure out some of those smaller elements along the way, and that is what's really going to elevate your game and allow you to actually perform better overall. So whatever, and that's whatever you do. Whatever you are working toward, whatever you're trying to accomplish. If you're, let's say you're coding, you're a developer, you should start out with an idea for a game or a website, and it'll have all the flash, all the jazz, all that kind of stuff just littered all over it in your mind. On paper, in your mind, you'll write it all down. You'll know exactly what you want, and then from there you'll start to pull it back. You'll start to realize, like, oh, I can't put all this stuff into it. I don't have time to do all that. You'll start to find not only shortcuts that'll help you to be quicker along the way, but you'll also figure out what's most reasonable, what's most realistic to be able to aim for. And so the only way to do that is to know what you're aiming for. So we've kind of structured this course upside down to expose you to the tools first, so that we can start to get a handle on what the tools are doing, how they're used, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll start to get into what we're doing with the tools. Once you know how to use Photoshop, once you know how to use Google Slides or Figma, then you can start to tailor that experience to know where we're going. Why are we using this tool? What are we doing with this tool exactly? So, to get right into it, what is UX design? What is it? When we're thinking about UX design, user experience design. It's very close to UI design, user interface design. What is that? You've probably been exposed to graphic design. You've probably seen either the works of Banksy, as he tags different walls. I think he's a British artist, but he's underground artist. Does spray paints and murals and graffiti like that. You've seen magazines and different types of layouts. You've seen product design. Think of the Reese's wrappers. Think of Frito-Lay, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, any of the products that you work with, that you interact with day to day, and that you recognize. So you've come across graphic design, marketing, advertising. What is UX design? We can look at a couple different definitions here. So the first one being user experience. UX design is the process design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. UX design involves the design of the entire process of acquiring and integrating the product, including aspects of branding, design, usability, and function. And that comes from interactiondesign.org, as well as another definition. The user experience, UX, is how a user interacts with and experiences a product, system, or service. It includes a person's perceptions of utility, ease of use, and efficiency. That comes from Wikipedia. What the hell even is that? What even is that? When we think of those definitions, what is that? What does all of this word salad even mean? What it comes down to, decision making. Decision making is the heart and key to designing. When you think of UX design, think of decision making. What we're going to try and do in this course is make you a more decisive person, make you more analytical, quantitative. There's not going to be numbers that we have to crunch and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be from the perspective of what makes the most sense. That's going to come down to decision making. When you make a decision, when you have two things, when you have A and B here, and you have to pick just one, you're making a decision. And those decisions are critical to the experience, to the bottom line, to productivity. All comes down to making one decision. And so that's what your job, that's where you come in. If you can reasonably explain the methodology you've used or the decisions that you've made, you're participating in user experience design. So when we get into designing, because we want to get into this pretty quickly, we know that's about decision making. We know that when you design, you're making a decision about the product or service or software or application, various buzzwords, different terms, terminology to define what we're making, what we're designing. But at the end of the day, it's about making a decision. When we make that decision, we want to think about the user and the user experience, so that the user is literally the user, the person who's using whatever product or service we're offering, or you can call them the customer or the client. Various different levels to the stakeholders that are involved here. So from a business perspective, the term stakeholders refers to different people who have some skin in the game. That will include like investors and stuff like that. So it's a pretty broad term. But when we consider the stakeholders, that's everyone who's going to benefit to any degree from the product that you're making. The investors who, put down their venture capitalist money to, help fund the project. The business that sells it, let's say, we're working at making some sprockets. So the company that sells sprockets, more so that, or makes the sprockets, they're going to have a bottom line. They're going to have some overhead as well. They're going to have some bills they have to pay, and they're going to have some revenue, some money that they get from the customer. We have to think about them and, the materials that they use, all that kind of stuff. Then we have to think about the customer who walks into the store and actually buys the product. Why would they want to buy this product? Why would they want to pick it off the shelf and, take it home? That's going to be a very important one. We want to build for that customer, because at the end of the day, the customer, even though everyone else along the way will benefit, the customer is the one who has to make the decision and say, yes, I want that. And then there's some middlemen along the way, Targets and Walmarts of the world who, buy from the people who make the sprockets and then put it on their shelves in the store. And then they, sell it to a customer later on and all that kind of stuff, yada, yada. You've seen all these Amazon affiliate ads on YouTube and stuff like that. So that one, not as, again, that's one of those middlemen. That's one of the other stakeholders in the process. Bottom line, you want to work toward pleasing the customer or the client. And, in the case of a client is probably, if you're like a graphic designer, the person who's buying your graphic design and stuff like that, they're probably not making the product. Or the client is the one who's making the product. You're not making the product, you're making something for the client in a way. But that's one reasonable way to kind of uh, think about it. So the customer has no affiliation to the creation process. The client does. They're in some way your boss. So in some way they're your customer and they're your boss. So that's the difference between like a customer and a client. So when we think about putting the customer or client at the center of your reasoning, we have to think about, is it a good experience? A good experience should be simple. It should be intuitive. It should, if it's more complex than that, it should lend itself to an intuitive nature. So if you're ever on a website and you don't know what a button does, you don't know what an icon means, and and you hover over that button, and it gives you a little description that says like, oh, this does whatever, or oh, this is the button, add new item, delete, anything like that. That's good user experience because it gives you more context clues, especially for someone who could be misguided, confused, whatever the case is. So that makes it simple. That makes it intuitive. It makes it intuitive to understand how to use that system or that product. And is this design accessible? Is it literally able to be accessed? So if you're working with physical products, like any type of like hardware, in terms of maybe you're making a car or something like that. You're designing a car to be built. If you have the steering wheel in the trunk, that's terrible design. There's no way that the person will be able to steer the car then, because the steering wheel is in the trunk while they're in the front passengers or the front seat. So you need to first and foremost allow the different functions on your website, on your app, in your product, in your physical product, to be accessible. So when we think about a website or an app like a mobile app on your phone, you've probably run into some situations sometimes when you don't know how to go back, or you don't know, where the next section that you're looking for is, or even where you land on a screen on your phone and you're thinking like, oh, is this it? Like, what am I doing here? Like, what's the next step? And then you realize that you can actually scroll up. You can scroll a little bit further, and then you're like, oh, there's a button down here to continue. And you want to take all that stuff into consideration. You don't want to leave your customer hanging like that, or your user. You want to make sure that people understand how to use the system. You don't want them to run to a brick wall like that. So, is it able to be accessed? Can the person find the information they're looking for, find the button that they need to use, and can they click on it? Can they, actually interact with it? And is it operable by various means? So, as you get more complex, sometimes, if you're ever on your computer, instead of going to, let's say you're working in Microsoft Docs or, documents, if you were trying to copy something, you could highlight the text that you're trying to copy, go up to File, click on it, scroll down, or it might be under Edit in a different case. So you might go under Edit, Copy, and go on with whatever you're trying to do. You could also just press Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac, and then that will copy. So 2 different methods to do the exact same thing. One that is like 6 different steps to be able to get to it. One that's literally 2 keystrokes away. And it just kind of depends on, one, what you're most comfortable with. So again, in this course, we're going to be covering a lot of stuff, but it's based on the fundamentals and understanding how and why we're doing it. Not getting into the nitty gritty of exactly what to do. We're not getting too fancy. We'll get fancy, but that'll be kind of on your time more than in this course. So it's operable by various methods. That's another thing to consider. Let's take a look at this. So here we have two different mice, two computer mouse that you would use for your probably PC. In this case, it look like PC mice rather than the Apple Magic Mouse. But on the left side, we have a very ergonomic mouse design. So as you can see, it's tilted at this crazy angle. The person's able to hold it. That looks like it has multiple buttons. So it's got like a button. Let's see. 1 second. Didn't think I'd be annotating this quickly, but here we go. So already, we've got one button. The middle mouse is a button. This is a big button. Another button. This button. Looks like there's one more button right there. Like, we've got at least 6 buttons. The mouse can sometimes toggle left and right like this. So when we're working with this stuff, let's see. 1 second while I fix that. I don't think it showed up. So we've got that, but we need to relink this one. Okay. All right, and way off. Okay. Give me 1 sec just to swap that out. Okay, there we go. All right, so go ahead and instead do it this way. All right. So we've got one button. Try this again. One button, two button. This middle mouse is a button. Here's another button. Looks like there might be another button right there. One more button right here. So we've got just a ton of buttons going on here. And even this middle mouse can sometimes toggle side to side like that for some scrolling purposes. So just a crazy design for a mouse that you could use for your computer. On the flip side, and it's really good. It's probably very comfortable to use. You probably can use it for hours on end. I could see probably a gamer of some sort, some Call of Duty player, using this mouse, maybe getting some extra kills based off it. The sensitivity on the mouse is probably set pretty high, yada yada. But on the flip side, we have your standard mouse over here. It has 3 buttons basically, one on the left, one on the right, one right down the middle. Now, even though the ergonomic mouse is probably very useful for, the comfort and ease of, working at a computer for a long time, the problem is that it's extremely biased. So this one is clearly a right-handed mouse, and if a person's going to try to use it with the left hand, good luck. I don't think it flips. I don't think it does anything like that. Maybe it does. Maybe I'm completely confused, but just by the placement of the middle mouse, it seems like only one type of person could use that. And so when we think about the idea, is it operable by various methods? The answer is no. So the ergonomic mouse, it has a major downfall and drawback versus the standard mouse on the right side here. That one, if you go into your Windows settings, you can actually it might be Mac settings too. You can actually flip the left and right mouse button, and there's an option for that. That one you can do for the standard mouse design. A left or right-handed person could use that mouse because the mouse's design is symmetrical, not asymmetrical like the ergonomic one. and that makes it very versatile. Is it as comfortable? I don't know, probably not. It's probably just regular mouse. No one really cares too much. But is it versatile and multi-purpose, multifunctional? It actually is. And so, that's something to consider in designing. Everyone probably wants to make this type of spaceship for their designs, but sometimes going simpler could be better. Here's another example. All right, can opener and the can. Now the tin can is a great idea. Fantastic idea. Preserves food, keeps it fresher longer. You have your food vacuum sealed inside a tin can. Perfect. Keeps it edible for months, years on end. Great. Now, the major flaw with this is you need the can opener with the tin can. If you were stuck on a desert island and you only had a tin can of food, you haven't had food in a week, and a tin can of some green beans, or some dole fruit or whatever, washed up on the beach, you're out of luck if all you have is the tin can on the left. Both of those are great ideas. The tin can, great idea. The can opener, great idea. Fantastic idea. It's very necessary when we think about the tin can. Now, when we look at the idea on the right, putting the little tab on top of the tin can, that is a fantastic idea. Because now if you had the can on the right, you're set. You're good to go. You can reasonably, feasibly use that can on the right. Because they put that little stupid tab on top. Because they gave it the little extra perforation around the seam and put that tab right on top. Completely eliminates the need for a can opener. Genius. That is genius. So, for design, the key to user experience is to place the user and the customer at the center of your reasoning. Make choices and decisions that help your target audience to use your product. The best place to start is to design for you. So you as a reasonable human being, if it's a product or system or service that you would want to use yourself, then you have a starting point. So basically, whenever you're thinking about design, whenever you're thinking about, a lot of people probably want to start out pretty fancy. They probably want to, shoot high, shoot far. They're looking for some incredible, new design that's just gonna, knock the pants off someone. And that's not necessarily how you go about starting. When you consider creating a product or a service, you have to start with yourself. Now, other schools of thought would suggest that you want to poll an audience, figure out your personas, ask your grandma about something that she might need. And that's a good place to start. You being a person are as good as any other person when it comes to figuring out what needs to be made. So a lot of times in the market, a lot of successful companies, they create products that aren't necessarily for people like them, but are very necessary for certain types of people, certain groups, demographics, categories. They know that a person, they wouldn't necessarily buy their own product. They have no need for it. Someone who's afraid of the water wouldn't buy water floaties because then they know they're not getting in the water anyway. But they know that other people do like to swim. So someone who is completely terrified of the water can still make water floaties, knowing that it will help, either save someone else's life or help them to enjoy their time in the water, regardless of if that person themselves wants to use their own product. But at the same time, you can put yourself in the shoes of a person that would buy your product and understand, does this product work for me? So it, and that sometimes that might not be the best approach. Sometimes you're designing for a very specific demographic of people who are, not like you, and then you want to make sure that you're designing for them. But you want to start out with you as a use case, because if you wouldn't want to use your product, if you are, even if you're designing for someone who, is a special use case, and you can look at your product and woo, it is a stinker, it's probably not worth going forward with that. So you is always a great place to start whenever you're thinking about how you're designing and who you're designing for. So, and of course, most people in the world are, normal humans, and they need normal things, food, water, whatever else. So you are a really good advocate and starting point for your own product and your own design. So then when we continue on, we look at the tools that we're going to be using during this course. So left hand side, we have some art and graphic design tools. Right hand side, we have some UX tools. UX tools vary a little bit from graphic design tools. They're a little more intricate. Not intricate in terms of, like, I would say the graphic design tools are a little more complex, but the UX design tools try to be a little more pixel perfect. As they say, they used to be the big buzzword in the industry. So on the left, we have Photoshop, Krita, GIMP or GIMP. Medibang is one that I came across in researching for this, as well as Paintbrush. On the right, for UX design tools, we have the industry standard at the moment, Figma. We have InVision Studio. We have Sketch, Adobe XD, Adobe Illustrator, and Canva. So, like I said, there's going to be probably many more out there that you can use, and you can use anything that's, especially a free program. I would definitely advocate toward the side of free, but anything that's going to be useful and is a graphic design software of any sort, it's going to help you. Basically, you can make UX and graphic designs in nearly any of these programs. There's not much of a difference. You don't need specialized tools and programs, stuff like that. Even pencil and a napkin will get you by for UX design. UX design is a very simple field. We don't need a lot. Again, it's about decision making. It's about the brain power that you put behind it. So the tools on the right, they're fancy. They're great tools to use. They're great tools to figure out. Once you figure out Figma, you'll quickly catch on to InVision. Once you figure out InVision, you'll quickly catch on to Sketch. Any of those, the different ones have their different ups and downs, but they're in any tool that allows you to make a circle and a square, you're golden. You're good to go. So these are some of the tools. I'm going to post the link in the description so that you can go to any of these, click on the different links to any of these different tools, download it for yourself. Again, they're labeled things like Photoshop, Sketch, any of the Adobe products. Those are paid products. Everything else is free. So definitely take advantage of some of the free ones. Don't be afraid to download it. Don't be afraid to start playing in it. Especially anything like Figma or Canva that's browser or web based versus something that's like literally just on your computer, like Medibang or Krita. Those ones you download onto your computer. But the ones that are definitely web based, like Figma and Canva, go in, go crazy. Have a time of your life, because you're not going to break it. You're not going to mess up. You're not going to do anything wrong or anything like that. There's a ton of tutorials out on the internet that can teach you how to get started in these. So go crazy. Definitely try and download at least one of these, at least Figma. We will be getting into Figma as well as some other things later on in this course. So let's talk about the elephant in the room here. MS Paint. So I did not include it on the list, but it is an option. So if you want, you can use MS Paint. It comes pre-installed on Windows. It is not preferable. If you have the need to challenge yourself, if you have the need to basically take a time machine backward, go ahead and use MS Paint. It's not going to be the best tool to help you out. So go ahead, help yourself, do yourself a favor, download any of the previously mentioned programs and try to avoid probably MS Paint, but it is also an option. However, in doing my research for this, I also realized that Windows actually came out with Paint 3D, which is their improved version of MS Paint. MS Paint was slated to die in 2017, but there's a huge community that kind of backs MS Paint, and just the fact that that comes pre-installed on Windows, and it's just there. It's been a standard for so many years. They decided not to kill it, so it still comes pre-installed on Windows, but so does Paint 3D. So if you're really looking to get into the world of design here, I would highly suggest at least giving Paint 3D a try, if not learning to dabble in it, because not only does it do 2D graphics, just like the name suggests, it does 3D graphics as well, which can be a really, really cool thing if you're trying to do graphic design, if you're trying to, do really cool compositions and stuff like that, to be able to work in the X, Y, and Z coordinates is really cool and offers, literally more dimension to your artwork. So this is one that I highly, suggest giving a try. For Mac users, unfortunately, there are no pre-installed art or painting programs on Mac. So, you've got GarageBand, but you don't have your version of MS Paint. So if you're looking for a version of MS Paint or something very simple like that, Paintbrush is where you're going to have to go. Sad story, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. So that comes down to picking the tool that's going to be best. Obviously, if we're in this for UX design, we're going to be working in Figma later on. Figma is going to be a great one to use, but if you're here not necessarily looking to learn UX design, just looking to learn some other things, some other tips along the way, then you may want to, consider some other things. In terms of graphic design, I still think that Photoshop is probably top tier here. I've tried Medibang. I don't think I've tried the text tool in it. So for its graphical performance, I highly liked it. And it's a Japanese one. It seems to have a large community behind it, so that's pretty cool. So does Photoshop. If you go to the Adobe website, they every day from they're in California time. Pacific time. So, but like 8 a.m. to like 3 p.m. or something, or like 10 to 3 or something, Eastern Standard. They, or is it five? Oh no, it's like 5 or 6. But either way, 8 a.m. to like 3 p.m. Pacific time, they're doing just tutorials and different showcases of their different products and stuff like that. So, really good resource to be able to learn some of those Adobe products if you have some and you haven't checked out that. I'll link to that in a upcoming webcast here. But otherwise, my ranking system for graphic design: Photoshop, Medibang, Krita. Krita's pretty good. Its text tool is atrocious, god awful. I avoid it at all costs. GIMP, I went back and tried again. I've tried it a couple times. It gets the job done, but it doesn't feel good to use. I don't know why. And then of course there's Paintbrush and MS Paint has options. Those are bottom tier there, so I would avoid those if you can. If you can use anything else, it'll really help you along. On the UX design side of things, we have Figma, Sketch, and InVision Studio. Now, InVision Studio I ranked slightly higher than Sketch, and it's only for the reason that initially Sketch was the industry standard before Figma came along. So we had Sketch, and it integrated with two things, Craft and InVision Studio. So, or not InVision Studio, InVision, which will, when you made your designs in Sketch, then you would export your artboards and post them on the InVision website. But in order to do that, you need an extra plugin, a middleman there to kind of make the connection, and that was Craft. You didn't actually need that, but it helped a lot. You could otherwise just export your stuff from Sketch, download it onto your computer, upload it onto InVision, have it, not really work that well. But otherwise, Sketch was the industry leader. Then we kind of got XD in there. Adobe threw their hat in the ring, and their attempt was okay, but their software is lacking. Recently, they acquired Figma. So Figma is technically under the Adobe umbrella now, but it's not necessarily an Adobe product yet, so it's still free. Definitely go try it, definitely go download it. But XD was an option for a little bit that some people tried to dabble in, but Adobe didn't handle that one quite right for it to overtake Sketch. So then we got InVision. InVision, all of a sudden, kind of threw their hat in the ring and said, "Oh, okay, we'll give this a go. We've been hosting people's prototypes for years, so let's go ahead and just make our own version of Sketch, essentially, and just have that work seamlessly with InVision." So they came out with InVision Studio, which, if you go to the link that I've posted a couple screens back here. Go to the link, it'll ask you to sign in. You just create an account and do the whole sign in thing. If for some reason you get lost along the way after you've created your account and signed in, just come back to this, click on the link again once you've signed in once, and it will take you to the download screen where you actually download InVision Studio. It's this black screen, and then you have to scroll down to actually see what you're trying to get to, but the download link. But point being, this was a nightmare to try to track down the InVision Studio link, but it's still out there. It's still free. So if you're looking to try that, it supposedly boasts some good animation capabilities, and it integrates and hosts its own prototyping. So that one I've never fully delved into. I know of it, and I've seen some people use it before, but it's not something that I've personally used just yet, but I think it's a pretty good option and solution. But again, the king is going to be Figma. So, and then below all of those four, Figma, Sketch, InVision, and XD, we've got Adobe Illustrator. It was never really meant to be a like wireframing and UX design tool, but especially with smart guides, it's a little bit better. Still very clunky. It's more of a graphic design tool, but because completely vector based, put it on the UX design side. And then we have Canva. Unfortunately, now Canva actually, I should rank a lot higher here because they've actually come out with a lot of improvements to their system recently. So that one, that one probably is the most stiff. You're probably looking to work with some pre-made assets and stuff like that from Canva, but they allow you to uh, possibly draw your own objects and assets. I don't know if they allow you to, but you can drag and drop a lot of assets. You can make some great designs, graphic designs, using their like pre-made assets, using their free assets and stuff like that. Um, but overall, that one I ranked lowest just because there's more freedom in the other five to be able to do your own thing. But if you're looking to get some hand holding and you're looking to start out, Canva is a good option. So, in the process of installing Medibang, I ran into some issues, and it kept saying Microsoft Visual C++ redistributable package, blah blah blah. So basically, it's a Microsoft Visual C++ is something that's already going to be installed on your computer. Usually, it kind of associates, I think, with Visual Studio, which is a code editing program that comes with Windows here. Point being, the program Medibang just kept running into an error trying to install its own version of this. So the workaround to this, if you're trying to install Medibang, is to one, follow the tutorial that's listed out in this presentation, but also you can just go into your Windows by pressing the Windows key and type in apps and features. From there, you'll go into the apps and features window. You'll find Visual C, the redistributable package, and you'll uninstall it. And then after uninstalling it, then you'll go click on the Medibang file and install that one. And what it will do is, if you have a older or a newer version of the redistributable package, then Medibang will download its own version of it, of the redistributable package, and it may not be as up to date, but all you have to do, don't worry if it puts something older on your system. Once you kind of restart your system and all that kind of stuff, Microsoft Visual C++ will kind of update itself. It keeps itself updated. So even if Medibang kind of sets you back a little bit, it's not a major program to worry about. It's not going to give you a blue screen of death or anything like that. And it will also update itself at a later point. So nothing to concern yourself about. Go ahead and you can uninstall whatever's already on your system. Let Medibang install its own thing, its own version, and then just wait for it to update itself. So it will correct itself. That's what this screen is saying. So don't worry, the application will update itself back to the latest version. I was a little worried about that when I first tried it myself, but it goes right back and it's perfectly fine. So you probably will have something C++ 2015 to 2020 blah 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 as the number. Hard to say exactly what number that will be, but the one that installed with my version of Medibang that I downloaded was the 2015 to 2019, but it went, like I said, it went right back to whatever it was previously. So, motion graphics, aka video editing software. This is something that we'll lightly cover as well as we go through this process. And this is going to have to deal primarily with After Effects and Premiere. So most of the time, when you work with prototypes, you're going to probably either be using Figma or using Sketch with the Craft plugin and InVision to tag along, blah, blah, and that's basically just still images that one points to the other, and then you can basically click your way through. It's like a soft demo or prototype, a low level prototype of the app or like desktop software that you're trying to build overall. But that's basically how you do that in most cases. Sometimes some jobs or companies or whatever might ask you to do some video editing so that it can be an even fancier version of a prototype. Now with Figma, you can use some cool tricks and smart animate and all that kind of stuff to do some things that make it almost seem like it's a video. But if you're getting into video stuff, After Effects and Premiere are pretty good options for using editing video, and that's one aspect of the job that we might end up covering. But if you don't have those, those are paid. There are some free editing softwares available. I'm not guaranteeing that they are the best. I'm not guaranteeing the quality that you'll be able to get through them, but they are available for Mac users. You do have iMac or iMovie automatically downloaded, pre-installed on your Mac. Windows has, I think Windows does have one video editor, and it is called Video Editor. Both of these are okay. The iMovie definitely better. I think a little bit better than the video editor. I just tried the video editor based on just trying to do some research for this video. It works all right. Both of these come with some standard transitions. Both of these allow you to basically cut a piece of footage where it needs to be cut, but you're definitely going to get a lot more bang out of After Effects and even Premiere. When it comes to video editing, there's basically two different versions of video editing. There's the editor, which is where you take your ready-made video footage. So if your video is looking good and all you have to do is just clip off a couple seconds, get rid of some dead air, or get rid of whatever blue screen or one from minute 52 to minute 53 that you just don't want included in your final video. That's what a video editing program is for. Now there's also visual effects editors as well, and those ones are going to be like Nuke or Silhouette or After Effects, just to name a couple. But these ones are going to be where you put in your compositing, putting in your explosions and helicopters and all that other jazz that makes movies really cool. So Video Editor and iMovie are not the visual effects editors, but they are pre-installed video editing software. So if you're in a pinch, try those. So for our takeaways for this week, your homework is to begin thinking about various designs in your day-to-day life. So as you move about, as you get into your car and look around and see where the radio button is, where the blinkers and the blinkers and the windshield wipers are located on the steering wheel and stuff like that, think about how useful it is, how much it makes sense, how ergonomic it is, as you use different things like can openers, as you interact with different things from pencils to pens, even anything as simple as a pen. And I'm sure everyone probably has a couple different types of pens in their house, and you've probably used a gel pen that's far better than an ink pen, in your opinion. Both of them write perfectly fine, but the one either stays wet longer, doesn't dry up. You left your pen cap off of this pen and it dried up immediately, while another one you left the pen cap off and it didn't, and just never dried up. And how did they do that? I don't know, but you have to think about those things in terms of what made the best experience, how it affected you, and if you're going to design in these kind of manners, you want to make sure that you're thinking about those things to help out your client, your customer, or your user. So take note of how easy or difficult the everyday item that you interact with is to use. Notice the ways that the objects are shaped and the ergonomic efficiency of it, the comfortability, what would make it better, what would make it worse, and which objects or products do you interact with the most? What products are your favorites, and what makes those ones stand out? So I can tell you, even in the kitchen, if you don't know, you should go with a larger knife and a sharper knife over a smaller knife and a duller knife every time. And the reason being is it makes for the right tool for the job. The most dangerous instrument to use in a kitchen is a dull knife. That's the most dangerous instrument that you can use in the kitchen. You want to use a sharp knife. It prevents accidents because it performs the function that it was meant to perform the easiest. And that might be, anti-intuitive. That might go against conventional reasoning. You might think, well, a sharp knife seems more dangerous. It could be. It can be, but not when you use it properly. And so, I know for myself that even when I'm in the kitchen, there are certain knives that I would prefer in certain situations. And it's because of their functionality and their ease of use in certain situations. The serrated knife, the kind with the little teeth that looks like little waves, those ones are supposed to be used for bread, if you didn't know. And once you find this stuff out, once you realize that there is a difference and a reason why knives in the kitchen are shaped the way they are, the handle is shaped a certain way that makes it easier or harder to hold, the blade on the knife is a certain way, and that it's meant for certain functions, it'll open up your world. So take note of this stuff. Start thinking about different ways that you can improve upon these things. If you have something that you just look at it and you're like, I don't even know why I use this product. This product sucks, and it'll be so much better if it X, Y, Z. And if you can fill in those blanks, you're on your way to being a better designer. So that's your homework for this week. Start critically thinking about the world around you. Also, before you leave, check out these resources. They were gathered by Deja Charisse, so blog.dejacharisse.com, and there are a bunch of free beginner UX and UI design resources on her website that go over some of the different resources that you can use if you want to get started with UX and UI and learning about these fields. So definitely take some courses, definitely look up some different YouTube videos or some different tutorials, and most certainly go download Figma, try out InVision Studio, download Krita or Medibang or even GIMP, and just start having some fun. There's a world of free options and resources out there, so don't think that this is something that's only meant for the elite or anything like that. These are tools that are available for you, and most importantly, these companies like Figma, they make these tools free because they want you to use the tools. They make most of their money off of the enterprise licensing that the businesses and companies buy from them, so that they can have 500 licenses to distribute to their employees or whatever. So they want you, in most cases, to use these programs and these softwares just on your own, so that you can develop the skills within them so that you can put together your resume and portfolio and land that job where you'll be using these tools every day. So definitely go check those out. Get started. This is a field for you. This is something that I'm going to help guide you through so that you too can get a UX design job. So let's do this. Let's get that job. Let's do this together. All right. Thanks you very much for joining us here, and we'll see you next week. All right. Take care.